out there today in news reports that were given to me by Betty in California, who has a number of questions for Mr. Bob Chapman, who will be on with us in just a second. She comes out and she says, Drew, Bob Chapman said forget about the national debt that the officials are putting out, and that the real debt, including all the non-budgetary items such as liabilities to Medicare, Medicaid, and the defense budget, is really 10 times. Is that what he said, or is it greater? And I told her, after looking at newsletters that Mr. Chapman put out, he actually printed 15 times. Today, ladies and gentlemen, August the 26th, 2010, it's being reported that Enron accounting abilities by the United States government has bankrupted the United States, and the United States deficit is really $202 trillion. Congress has engaged in Enron accounting. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bob Chapman's 2 years ahead of schedule. And they're just
that figure is now $207 trillion. And that does not include the military budgets.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the mouth of the man that made Wind Talkers Radio Network and a Marine Disposition #1 out there. His name is Mr. Bob Chapman, and I want to welcome him with the real truth. It's really about around $207 trillion. Welcome to the show, sir.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, and it's very nice to be here as usual after these long 5 years that we've been together here. Did you get that email I sent you this morning?
Sir, I'm going to be real honest with you. 15 minutes before the show time, I walked in the door from the VA. Thursdays is really a busy day for me. I did not get your email. It may be here, but I had not.
Well, let me tell you what it was. I was outraged. They are now going to force Marines to live in the barracks openly with self-avowed homosexuals. Now, I don't know how that's going to affect morale, but it certainly isn't going to help.
Well, I'll throw this at you. I read an article the other day that there was something come out, and 98% of the Marines polled at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, in Camp Pendleton, and 29 Palms in California, at Butler Base in Hawaii, 98% said, hell no, no way did they want to sleep in a barracks with queers and homosexuals. One Marine...
What this is designed to do is to destroy the morale of all of the men and women in all of the services. This is what it's designed, to create chaos and disruption, and that's why the administration is doing it, and it's going to get worse.
It's going to get a whole lot worse. I actually have been able to opportune your email about the outrage of U.S. troops scrounging for blankets and bullets in Afghanistan, and the Marines they've not had to scrounge for bullets or for blankets, but I understand that there's been some divisions over there that have been short-handed with some supplies, and that bothers me.
Well, how can you conduct an offense or a defense when you get two 30-shot clips of ammo? I mean, you got to be kidding me. On 3-shot bursts, you can go through 10 clips in probably a minute and a half when under fire. I mean, it's crazy.
And we have a problem. We do have a general in the United States Marine Corps that has advised Obama that this idea of allowing queers and homosexuals and lesbians to live in the barracks with normal men and women is not favorable to those in the United States Marine Corps, whether they're women or men, and it will not be tolerated. In the Marine Corps, I expect a minor little revolution out there if that is forced on them, not only because of morale, but I actually see what happened back in the 60s where those that were found to be queer were literally given blanket parties, and those of you who don't know what a blanket party is, we're talking about 10 or 12 Marines taking a blanket covering the head and shoulder blades of some queer homosexual Marine and literally beating him to a pulp. And it didn't happen just in the male quarters. It happened many times more often than in the women's quarters. And I think that's going to be a return to reality. And nobody's going to be able to be prosecuted because who are you going to see? I mean, if the guy gets beat up or the woman gets beat up, who's she going to report that beat her up? Because they beat these people to a pulp to where they're unconscious. So that's coming, Mr. Chapman. I see that returning to the Marine Corps.
Well, it's just a shame that the people who are on the line and giving their lives for our country and our freedom, male and female, have to put up with that. I mean, why did they leave it the way it was? I mean, those, don't ask, don't tell. And it seemed to work okay. I'm not in the service anymore, so I really don't know. But
well, we've had some sergeant majors in the Marine Corps come out of the closet. One sergeant major in particular from 29 Palms, California, came out of the closet and said that he was a devout homosexual, but married a woman and had 2 children with her to cover the fact that he was homosexual. But he retired after 21 years in the Marine Corps, of which he took 3 tours of duty in Vietnam. That's the only way I can see him actually becoming a sergeant major in the rank structure. And the minute he came out and said that he was homosexual, he did not have another Marine Corps friend in the area of 29 Palms. They all divorced from him. Period. It was he came out in the San Diego newspaper and saying it was like all of a sudden I had caught a plague of friends that I'd had for 20 and 30 years divorced themselves from me. Period. Well, that's the problem. I mean, that's not a problem. That's what the Marine Corps moral standard is. They're not going to put up with it, Mr. Chapman. Not at all.
Well, I was in the Army. They don't have as higher standards as the Marine Corps.
I understand that. I understand big time. And this is in the standards of the Corps, ladies and gentlemen. I want to tell you firsthand, it's not going to be received well when it's forced, and it's probably going to be a whole lot worse than what the government thinks that they can do with the Marines who are on the line, have to worry about some other male pervert sticking his hand over or some Marine waking up and having some pervert doing aggressions on him. And that is the last time that I know personally that it happened. The Marine in the bunk reached over, grabbed his rifle, and shot the guy's head off. And that happened in Vietnam in 1970. So I guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, it will return. A question from Bobby in South America. There's a $1 trillion bailout in the United States, and she wants to know, does Mr. Chapman have any knowledge of this new $1 trillion bailout?
The bailout is, in fact, Mr. Bernanke is going to speak tomorrow at this conference in Wyoming that they have every year, and I think he's going to intonate that there's going to be more help for the economy through quantitative easing, which is the creation of money and credit out of thin air. And it's very inflationary. But they don't want to let it all out at once. They just want to let it out a little bit at a time. But their plan, from what I understand from my connections, is $5 trillion over the next 2 years. If they used up, including what the legislature gave to the administration, in the last 15 months they used up $2.5 trillion. So this will be tripling that. It'll be another $5 trillion over the next 2 years. And that's what they intend to do. And that's going to make your dollar go down, gold and silver go up. The stock market will not go down as much as it would have up to a point. And sooner or later, interest rates are going to have to rise. Now, I don't see that happening in the next 2 years, but once it does, the bond market will come unglued. And that's 10 times bigger than the stock market.
You've been actually reporting that for over 18 months. And Betty in California comes in and says, Mr. Chapman, it's been reported by Bloomberg today that some governments around the world are going to default on their debts, with the global debt woes, which are so severe that some governments are actually going to have to throw their hands up. And do you feel that governments will impose a loss on some of their stakeholders and just walk away?
I think she means to the people who are the lenders. And the answer is yes. When I was on Greek radio and television and in their major newspaper, and I've been invited back, I don't know when, but they're going to have me back, I told them, this is what you've got to do. Number one, you've got to default in all or two-thirds of your debt. Number two, you've got to leave the euro. Number three, you have to expect that you're going to have probably 3, 4, 5 years of depression. And you have to cut about 30% of government expenditures. Now, if you take the loans being offered to you, you'll be in debt for $478 billion, which is unpayable, and you will be in a depression for 30 or more years. Now, it's pretty simple. Which way do you want to go? And the short way is the best way. Now, the man who runs the country over there is a Bilderberger and an Illuminist. And so what he wants to do is have an austerity program, which he's put in 70% unemployment in some cities, 70. 17% of the shops, that's 17, have been shut down in Athens. It's ravaging the economy because you can't do it this way. And this guy, Papandreou, he wants to sell off all the assets of the Greek government, which includes all the islands, for 20 or 30 cents on the dollar to his buddies in the Illuminati. And that's part of what this is all about. And that's going to spread because it's not going to work. And they asked me what to do. I said, throw him out of office. And it's going to do, if the Greeks do that, the other four nations of Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Ireland will do the same thing. And the states in the United States are in the same position that Greece and those other countries are. And the federal government can't keep on holding them up, giving them hundreds of millions of dollars for every state. And look at today's issues of the International Forecaster. I got all the figures in there. I mean, Abominable doesn't even cover it. And of course, you have the federal problems as well. And so we haven't seen anything yet. The credit crisis that we were in, we're still in. And we're not going to come out until it collapses. And yes, they can spend $5 trillion and extend it 2 years. The collapse, the deflationary depression is going to come no matter what they do, and they know that.